Welcome, my name is Gromik, and today I will talk about integrating iTunes University in the classroom to complement content acquisitions. In order to understand iTunes University, we need to understand the concept of mobile-assisted learning. We understand that students have access to technology anytime, anywhere. And on the left is a picture about the type of technology that students can have access to. And so as we can see, the technology is converging and it's advancing rapidly. We are now using iPads, and these provide us with a greater access to information. Students use that technology in order to learn anywhere, but the concept of learning is changing. It's about learning content that students want to learn about. It's not necessarily learning about the content that we want them to learn about. So the portability is giving them access to either entertainment or information. And we need to understand that. Why am I sharing this information? Well, first of all, because I'm interested in research on iTunes University and the use of mobile technology. Next, whether we like it or not, as educators, students are bringing the technology in the classroom. They are using it with their peers for collaborative learning. They're actively involved in the use of the technology and their learning. And they are using social networks to discuss with their peers what they are learning about. So, students are using that technology anytime, anywhere, at their convenience to learn about issues or topics that they want to learn about. iTunes. iTunes is probably a resource that educators don't maximize or don't use to the fullest extent. As you can see, you can have access to audiobooks, you can have access to podcasts, and iTunes University. Now, if I wanted to grow rich in 2011, I could just simply go to a podcast and learn all about it. If I wanted to study about animals, I could go to Animal Planets. iTunes is a very important and valuable resource, and we, as educators, we need to understand how to use it. What I'm interested in is iTunes University. As teachers, we like to reinvent the wheel, but we don't necessarily have to. Although I am currently based in Singapore, I can use iTunes University to study with Deakin University in Australia. I can learn about how to shoot videos for news and documentaries simply by going to Deakin's University, iTunes University information. If I, as a teacher of engineering students, I can go to the Open University site on iTunes University and expose my students to content about air pollution. And as you can see, the students have access to videos. And what we need to understand is that I don't need to reinvent the wheel. Those videos are produced by professional and recognized universities, and they are producing professional content and resources. This saves me time. So how do I access iTunes University? Well, it's fairly simple. I just need to go to iTunes on Yahoo. I can, on my browser, just do a search, and then I need to download the software. I set it up on my computer, and once it's set up on my computer, I can simply search the catalogs and learning materials available on iTunes University. However, I still need to understand what the purpose of my course is. I need to plan how I'm going to integrate that technology into my lessons. I need to design or maybe just redesign my lessons and my learning materials so that I can introduce these particular videos. And I need to evaluate, make sure that what I'm using is actually useful. And then finally I need to implement, either with worksheets, supplement it with worksheets, or engage the students into discussions about the content that they are viewing. This being said, I still need to prepare myself and organize my lessons properly in order to integrate iTunes University learning materials efficiently into my classes. So here's an iTunes University page, and as you can see, I can access information about math. I can talk about women in literature. I can access Cornell University videos. There's a lot of opportunity and a lot of content that I can search for and use for my classroom. So for example, if I were teaching about William Shakespeare, I could easily access all of these resources from a variety of universities, and these would be reliable professional videos that my students could watch to gain a better understanding. In using these resources, I can complement my teaching. I can complement the content. I can expose the students to a wider range of information available to them. In addition, what this means is that my students are no longer learning from me being in Singapore. They are now learning from all the teachers around the world in a variety of university environment, which means that they are being exposed to real content that's being created for native speakers, and this increases their listening comprehension. However, when we use iTunes University content, we need to be aware of a few things. First of all, there's the obvious listening problem for learners. Non-native speakers will have listening comprehension problems, and we need to be aware of that. So we need to make sure that the speakers' voices are at a slow pace, well regulated, with no pronunciation errors. It's better to find videos because it increases listening comprehension. We need to be careful of the time. In the particular example that I'm showing you right now, the time is 20 minutes. This is too long for a non-native speaker. We need to keep the videos at a maximum of 10 minutes. The best time is usually 5 minutes. So we need to be aware of the content that's being discussed, making sure it's not too difficult for the listener, and making sure of the time, that it is within their attention span time. Here is an example of a video. This video talks about how do we structure an essay, how can we organize an essay. It's produced by McMaster University in Canada. Here, obviously, the speaker uses target language. It demonstrates English for academic purposes, so the students can listen on the structure of an essay. It's explaining how Canadian students are learning to write an academic paper. It gives authentic advice, real advice for improving writing. And the examples are provided from an authentic environment. It's a real university, and it's real advice for real students. So if we are using these examples in our classroom, then the students are better able to understand that their problem of writing is not their only problem. It's everybody's problem. And so it motivates them to want to write better. So what I have done is I conducted research on the use of iPod technology and iTunes University. And the NLI, we used the TAM, which is the Technology Acceptance Model, as a way to understand whether students were happy with using the technology. According to TAM, we looked at the perceived usefulness, the perceived ease of use, the intention, the behavior of use, the attitude towards technology, and the productivity with technology. So now what I'm going to do is I will look at each of these items one after the other. In the perceived usefulness, what you can see is that in the beginning, iTunes resources is useful. And in the beginning, students were around the 3.8 mark, which means that the students were not sure whether they thought that iTunes resources were useful. For 5, on a Likert scale, 5 being totally disagree. At the end of the project, 12 weeks later, the students' opinion changed because they could see that using iTunes clips was actually useful. I conducted this research with 3 groups, 1, 2, 3, and you can see in each group the students' perception on the usefulness of using iTunes and iTunes University and iPods to learn with has changed over time, over 12 weeks. The same goes for usefulness of activities. The 3 groups are there, the 3 classes are there, and the students see that the clips are useful for the activities that they are completing. So it's useful for them to acquire the content that they need to acquire. Perceived ease of use. Is it easy for the students to use the technology? Is it easy for the students to download the clips from iTunes University? Those were some of the questions that we asked. As you can see, group 1, 2, and 3 again. 5 being totally disagree, 1 being strongly agree. In the beginning of the project, the students didn't know whether it was easy to download information from iTunes and iTunes University. By the end of the project, students had changed their mind more positively, and they find a more positive attitude towards learning with this technology. In the beginning, the students didn't know if using iTunes and iPods would be useful. At the end of the project, at the end of 12 weeks, it was easy to learn to use iTunes and iPods for learning too, which is again a positive shift. Productivity. Here we're looking at viewing videos improve knowledge of the subject. Does it improve their understanding of the content? Does it improve their ability to work better? Using iTunes improved note-taking. In the beginning, the students from the 3 groups didn't think that using such technology and using iTunes services would improve their note-taking, for example. However, by the end of the term, the students shifted positively to a more positive perspective, saying that yes, it did improve their note-taking skills. Same with time management. In the beginning, students were not sure that it would improve their time management. However, when the resources are selected carefully, the students have access to videos that are easy to understand, that are short, therefore they enjoy viewing the videos because they're less than 10 minutes and preferably 5 minutes long, around 5 minutes, and therefore again the students are shifting towards a more positive perspective on the use of iTunes and its content. Attitudes. Attitude is basically whether it was easy to use the technology, whether they trusted the technology, whether it added to their learning, okay, and it improved their learning. So if we look at the students' perception on the use of the benefits of using this technology, here we're not just sure. Trusted the benefits of using iTunes, yes, it was a small negative or neutral perception on this technology. By the end, the students trusted the benefits of iTunes more positively. However, if we start looking at adds little to the traditional education, we can see that group 3 in this case thought that iPod added little to the learning. Same with iTunes resources for learning are limited. Clips for learning were limited. The students here, again, the shift is not great. So we need to really understand how the clips can be of greater benefit to the students. And so if we let them search for the content themselves, it might engage them to think that the resources are more beneficial to them. Intention. Will the students continue to use this technology once the project is finished? Here, in the beginning, strongly recommend iPods and iTunes for learning. The students think that they would be recommending it. And by the end of the course, the shift, by the end of 12 weeks, it has a more positive shift, but it's not significant. It's not of great significance. It is a shift, but it's something that we need to consider so that we can improve students' opinion of iTunes and iTunes University. Again, the shift for what I was interested in here is making sure that the students will continue to use iTunes and iPod technology to learn. And so I asked the students, will you frequently use to learn, or I will continue to use the iPod to study, and I will continue to use iTunes on my computer to study. And we can see that there is a shift. The students will be learning, will continue to learn on their own. However, group 3, there is a sort of neutral to negative shift. And again, here I think that if we were to give the students the choice of the type of resources that they could use to understand the content, I think it would make a greater influence, because the students would then understand, they would actively learn by themselves to seek those resources. They would be more independent in the type of resources or learning material that they are looking at on iTunes University. Behavior of use. Do the students, think that using iTunes is interesting? I'm looking at, with this particular behavior and use, I'm looking at when the students actually use iTunes, what they use it for. And so one thing that is interesting is that the students strongly agree that they use iTunes when relaxing. This is quite important because we're trying to understand when is it most beneficial for the students to use the technology to learn. And in this particular case, it's important for the students to use the technology when they are relaxing, and I'm assuming that they are focusing more on the content that they are viewing. With this particular case, we can see that the students are using the technology before studying, and this is reflective of the fact that I encourage them to study with the technology, because I provided the content to the students. They really had to use it, and therefore in this case they did watch the content before they studied or researched on the particular content that they were interested in. So this research has been conducted in Japan, Qatar, and currently in Singapore. Gruber has recommended that when students use audiovisual resources, they feel immersed in the content and in the information that they are viewing. Wagner, however, explained that the problem with using audiovisual resources is that we don't actually know whether it is the visual that influences comprehension or whether it is the listening that influences comprehension. And so more research is needed in that area. Gromik in 2006 explained that when the students watch appropriately structured videos, they have a higher rate of comprehension. So, as I explained before, the time of the video is very important, the quality of the speech is very important, and the speed of the speech is very important to increase listening and viewing comprehension. Finally, Al-Nuaimi in 2007 explained that if we engage the students to listen to audiovisual resources, to view audiovisual resources on content that's directly related to learning, if we let them engage them to discuss the content that they are viewing and to maybe write something about the videos, they are more likely to retain the information, and retention is quite important. So now it's up to you. So how do you design, how do you integrate this information or the use of iTunes University into your classroom? Well, what I have done is basically look at my curriculum. What I do is I look at the curriculum of a course. I try to understand the objective of the syllabus, and I try to find the resources that I need for the issue that's being covered in class for that particular week. So as you can see, here we're looking at plagiarism and safe assignments, and I will look at Illinois University on plagiarism, or McMaster University for under time pressure and working with time management. And basically, this is the hardest part, is finding the videos that are directly related to the curriculum and the objective of the course. However, it's not an impossible task. You could, first of all, try to find the videos that you need or that are suitable, and then attempt to design your course around the videos available for you. In my case, I simply use a syllabus that's provided to me, and then I try to find the videos for that. It's a little bit more challenging, but it is possible nonetheless. So in conclusion, students have access to the technology. There is a wide range of technology that allows them to use iTunes University to give them access to audio and visual information, resources, learning materials, and the students can learn how to use this information anytime, anywhere. They can listen to it many times over and over again until they understand what the content is about. Students are using social networking sites to share their understanding of content that they have used through iTunes University, and if we engage them to reflect on the content that they have viewed, then they are more likely to retain the content and be able to deepen their understanding of this content. Thank you very much. I hope this presentation was useful.